Okay, recap for Tuesday, the 18th of August, 2026. I'll do Monday real quick. I don't really trade Mondays at all, but I'll just put a couple of pointers there, right? What, because it'll tell me what I need to know for the week, right? That's why I don't trade Mondays. I need to know or see how the first day is going to react and what we're going to do. What I expected us to do is actually open up, come back down lower, clear a lot of the garbage price action that we put last week in terms of leaving a lot of relatively good lows somewhere like here, or whatever, and then push back higher. What we actually did is open up, seek the highs first, and then start dumping. Okay, so that gave me the inclination. Okay, we are trying to go lower. In terms of just Monday, there is two daily levels I was just looking at, and that was this Civi, right? We went to the high of it right there, you see, and then start dropping, and we were not closing above the midpoint of it for 2 days, and it looked like Monday would be the third day. So easy target for Monday, right? When we opened up at market open, it's 9:30. We had all of this sell set, right? So an easy trade for Monday is targeting whatever the liquidity is, plus the new weekly opening gap, plus the midpoint of or the closure of our opening range gap, right? Just easy targets if you're looking at Monday, like just no brainer trade, right? We go to the midpoint initially, right? But we do have our highs here in terms of regular trading hours, which was Friday's high, which lines up with our buy side liquidity and also kind of makes relative equal highs here with our 9:30. All I was watching is normally Mondays a macro day for me. Really, I don't really trade outside the macro on Monday. If I trade, I don't really trade Mondays at all anyway. But when we come to the macro, first macro 950 right there, all I'm trying to see is okay. Initially, we just touched the new weekly opening gap, but I would like the new weekly opening gap get visited to at least the midpoint or lower or full closure for me to be like, okay, we're not really gonna gravitate to it any longer for today. The sell side is still bearish, so just us going lower was more probable than going higher. So I was just watching, are we trying to go higher here at the macro and then go lower? Or we this is just a classic Monday, you know, where it does basically. And we come all the way to the rejection block right here, have a wick, print it. So that's our BD array that I'm watching now. I'm looking at the wick. This body comes to the midpoint and closes below it. You take anything on the 15-second, it's a no-brainer inside the macro to the midpoint of the new weekly opening gap. Anything more than that, I wouldn't take. And if you are holding the trade and you were seeing this, it's not trying to close below. Then when it went all the way above, I guess you can take this as a early kind of launch model or whatever, for it to go to the full TPs by then, right? Well, what I expected it to do on Tuesday actually. I thought we were just gonna chill out here for the day and then do that Tuesday, but who cares, right? We did what we did on Monday. Anyway, let me just get rid of this because this is not the topic of the day. Other than showing us what the week could do, right? Now that we know what the week could do, it's bearish. And once we have our market open here at 9:30, I'm gonna clean this stuff up in a second, but I'll show you what I need to show. 9:30 is right here, this candle. If we just look at the overnight session, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 session buy side liquidities right above us. So I'm expecting initially, or I'm gonna give it the chance to visit at least one, right? The easiest one is our 7 to 9 high, right? And it's right there. It's close, market open, it could go to it, and then we could dump lower if we need to, right? If we're gonna stop, right? I need a daily PD array, preferably, and then if I can't find a daily one, I'll look at the 4 hour. This in blue is our rejection block, right? So I'm marking that level as a potential place where we could, reverse for the day, even not fully reverse, but like at least give that one little push higher before dumping lower if we want to dump lower, right? And on top of that, I'm marking this CB, this BC. That's not right. Did I not? Okay, no, it's on the other chart. I was just checking this CB out, right? I was looking how do we react into this range, and also I had this on the other monitor. Where's Octans? And I'm really just watching this level that lines up with the rejection block right there. Now the chart is going to be more see, right? So when the market opened right there at 9:30, all I'm trying to see just to determine where we're gonna go is first our regular trading opening range gap, right? It's a large opening range gap, and I'm just looking, are we gonna reach the lower quadrant, right? Because it's important that we reach the lower quadrant in the opening range, because if we don't, we're gonna have this type of thing, right? I need to know, are we gonna have a day where we at least can visit the midpoint, or we're not gonna do that, right? And typically a day that's expanding in just one direction or trending in one direction just can't reach the lower quadrant at all, right? And the lower quadrant lines up with our high, so I'm gonna take my bias that way if we stop at the rejection block that's lined up here in blue. Okay, so we open, we have this kind of little fake high, right, where we make relative equal highs right here, and I'm watching, I'm like, all right, that's nice, that's not bad, right? It's adding other buy side into that direction, and then we start dumping lower. I'm waiting for us to hit this daily fair value gap, but mainly the level that I'm looking at is this rejection block. So now we can get rid of this daily gap, but actually let's not get rid of it yet, because I want to show that actually we've got the levels, so I can get rid of it. So we're doing too much. I can't select it. Let me just clean this up. Just give me a sec. Let's just put it back on the daily. All right, so I'm looking at these two levels. Candle touches it, nice, but nothing realistic yet. Yes, we're close above it, but the second candle wicks all the way down here, and then make sure it was closing above it. The second that it was starting to close above it, and I was like, it was obvious that it was closing above it. I take my entry, just a long, and then I taper it off here. This is all just demo trading right now. I'm just practicing these days, right? And then I taper some off here while I had my TPs, the limit order, but the second that I didn't see a follow through, I expected speed after this. But the second that I did this, I started tapering off. And then when I started doing this, I just collapsed the trade because I was like, okay, it looked like we don't have the willingness to go up high. Why? Because this at the end of the day, if we can hold this area and wait around, by the time it's 10, this is going to be a 4 hour fair value gap and a 1 hour fair value gap to go to, right, on the high time frame. But we just shot straight down. Once we could close below this price level, right, just remember it, that was the rejection block. Now that I know that we could deliver lower in the wick, right, and if we look at the daily, right, forget the rejection block, we lost the rejection block. I'm looking at the next PD array that I can see this wick, right? I'm watching this wick. So I only had the midpoint of it, right, marked. and on top of that, that midpoint lines up with this volume imbalance on the daily. So I'm watching what price is going to do right there. Is it going to stop there and then going to have the bounce, or is it no? So we touched the midpoint. I don't see really any reactions of it there, so I don't really care about that wick no more at this current moment, and I'm focusing more on the volume imbalance. We go, as you can see, to the uptrend exactly, but mainly the low of the volume imbalance, and then we start going back. And I'm like, okay, this is trade number 2. In case this is a gauntlet fair value gap, right? I'll take this inversion once we have it. Once we close above midpoint here, and I'm like, okay, there is the chance that at least it could go back to what's this first presented fair value gap. That's my second trade that I take. These are all just practice trades, right? So once it closes above the midpoint, once it's trying to go back to the midpoint, I hit the entry, and I just didn't like this part, but that showed me that the warning signs of this potentially not going to be working out. Anyway, the trade works out and it goes to the midpoint of the open, the midpoint of our first presented fair value gap. Okay, I'm like, cool. All right, that's it. That's enough as a guaranteed trade, right? Take that off. Now I'm just watching what's gonna happen. Am I right to assume that because we don't hit the lower quadrant, that we're gonna presume just go lower? Whatever retracement is just gonna be inside the range. And I seen the signs that it was correct. Right? Why? Because I'm watching this wick inside the first presented, right? And we don't reach it right there. But we reach the midpoint of the first presented fair value gap, but I did expect us to reach that. And then we start going down. That showed us we're bearish, right? So now I'm looking at the midpoint of this wick right here, right? And I'm waiting to see, do we close below it? We close below it. All right, so now I know the likelihood of us going lower is probable. So now I'm watching this midpoint of this wick that touched the midpoint of the first presented fair value gap, couldn't reach this, and we hit it right there to the tick. And once we hit it, I'm just waiting for us to go below the first presented one more time and leave that range. And once we do that, the second that we trying to go up into it, I take my short, right? I know it's just a lot of steps, but I just needed to confirm that we're surely not going higher because it's a risky place to take the short, right? And I'm preferred this to be in the macro time, but it was just slightly before it. But 1040 for me is good enough, so I take the other short. And then let's just clean this short. 1 second. Right, and then once the macro comes, I'm watching this buy side imbalance. I'm waiting for 1050 that it has to act as an inversion fair value gap. 1050 comes, wicks above it, closes below, wicks above, close below. So I'm sure that the trade is fine, right? But then it goes all the way down to the midpoint of our buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency on the daily chart. But most importantly, what I was checking for is why are we closing below every PDA rate that is gonna push us higher, which means we're actually looking to get our previous weekly low and hit our weekly fair value gap, right? Not just the volume imbalance, but actually into the wick, the low of it. So that's why I had this marked right there as the TP essentially, right there. And you can see it lines up with the midpoint. So that was a high probability CP. So if you took this trade or this trade, this is probably the better one with the macro. Or this trade, they're both right. Or even if you took this long, I'd say as well. There's a lot of good trades or setups to be taken. This one as well, right here when we hit the first presented, common investors make this an inversion fair value gap basically. This was a good trade as well, right? And then comes all the way back down, because watch how it hits the first octant, I believe, right here. See, that's why I need to kind of keep the levels on one chart and the other one, because I'm not trying to explain it, it gets messy. But regardless, respects this, right? This one lines up with the octant, hits it, and then starts smacking all the way down to the low of the volume balance. So you have to take it PD array at a time, because you wouldn't know if it's going to come here, but once it goes here and fail, you will expect a lower low and what's the weekly, right? I'm giving it a chance to be bullish every single time because of all the buy side. However, the day and the daily profile is saying that it's going to be bearish the whole day. So regardless of whatever happens, right, we're going to have a lot of pullbacks, but it's going to distribute lower regardless for the rest of the day, right? Even here we have a simple lunch macro. Once we go higher, because remember, this is a sweep. If this was relative equal lows, then I'd expect to target these lows. But what I'm looking for is that kind of opening range. That's kind of how I see the macro, right? The first like 30 minutes, I'm looking at the lows that it makes, right? Or the range of it. And then after that, I'm looking at basically the rest of the hour and the end of it to make that entry for me, right? Here's the short, all the way to the relative equal lows, and then after that it's just consolidation. I've got nothing to do. So there's a lot of trade ideas for today, and also this is coming back to the low of the first presented fair value gap, and seeing how this first presented fair value gap is getting used a lot for this day and it's getting respected. Is that the type of first presented fair value gap that I would drag out till the next day? Okay, but we're just running around the volume imbalance now. So I believe we are still looking for lower prices. However, I do believe that tomorrow is definitely going to be slightly bullish, and we could look for some sort of retracement higher up to this inversion, right? That's what I believe tomorrow's price action is going to be like, and it kind of lines up with all the liquidities that we have left here, and it would be a nice way to come and continue the dump after creating what looks like relative equal lows, and then inversing that and keep going lower. I don't believe that we're going higher this week, and if well, you know what, we're gonna have to take it a step at a time, because at the end of the day, if we're looking at the monthly, I do expect us to take one of these, right? This month, either this monthly low or this monthly high, right? And we technically got around 2 weeks left. Yeah, we got 2 weeks left, this week and next week. So if this week runs through, right, we're gonna have to find out, right, if this weekly base is gonna hold. If it's gonna run through, this is gonna tell us next week target for sure, which is this low. And if this week gets respected here, right, and we start to look like we're returning higher, then regardless, the last week target is obvious. It's either going to be this high or that low, right? And that's all we need to know. In terms of ES has dumped everything. So there's that SMT that I presume will push us back to that inversion on the daily. I feel like that's enough for the recap. Talk too much, showed too much, probably confusing. All we need to know, the main rule for the day, if we just don't hit, if we have a large opening range gap and we don't hit the lower quadrant, or the closest quadrant, then expect a continuation regardless of how bearish it is, because it started dumping basically from 1 AM and we're still dumping. But this range is expected to get visited tomorrow, especially that we took our previous weekly low. Anyway, that's the market recap. Peace out.